Jim Norman, a troubled high school history teacher. He accepts a teaching position in his old hometown and moves back there from Chicago. Starting a new life, he returns with his wife Sally and their small son Scott. He attended his first day of teaching in his hometown, and after work, he went back to see their old house and relived fond memories with his brother Wayne. After seeing his older brother Wayne killed by a group of greasers during a mugging in a train tunnel in 1963, Jim and his parents left the little town when he was 9 years old. Soon after leaving their 1955 Chevrolet 150 on the railroad lines, 3 of the murderers, Richard Lawson, Vinnie Vincent, and David North, were struck and murdered by an approaching steam train. The 4th member, Carl Mueller, ran off and survived. After arriving back in his hometown, Jim begins to experience dreams and flashbacks related to his brother's slaying. He would always hear the train and the voice of his brother.
"Run, Jimmy, run!"
After he had a conversation with one of his students, Billy Stearns dropped his wallet and left with his bicycle. Jim went after Billy to give his wallet back. The 3 dead greasers' ghosts start chasing Billy shortly after. He is very scared. Despite Billy's efforts to pedal his bicycle as fast as he can, he ultimately ends up dead. Lawson joins Jim's class after likewise making a comeback from the grave. Jim went to visit his brother's grave. Suddenly, he saw the old church and had a flashback of him and his brother attending Mass inside the church. Jim whispered to his brother, asking why Jesus was always looking at him and why it scared him. Wayne responded, saying,
"This is the safest place I know."
The next scene is at the parade. Scott, his son, saw a pair of sneakers stuck on a post, but suddenly they fell to the ground. When Jim saw the shoes, they looked familiar to him, and he noticed Lawson staring at them from a distance. One night Jim decided to go for a walk and bumped into Kate. Later that evening, he dreamed about Kate and she was screaming,
"Help me, Jimmy!"
She was attacked by the greasers and hanged inside a barn. The next day, inside the classroom, Lawson grins at Jim, then turns his eyes on Kate's chair. Jim then realized that it was not a dream, and he quickly left his class to ask the police for help in searching for Kate. Despite their efforts, they couldn't find her. However, Jim eventually went to the barn and discovered Kate's lifeless body hanging. The 2 students' deaths were deemed to be suicides. After the death of Kate, Vinnie, who had previously passed away, suddenly reappears and rejoins Jim's class. Jim's student, Chip Conway, alerts him of Richard and Vinnie's desire for vengeance. The greasers, who have since joined forces with North and are traveling in a 1955 Chevrolet 150, attack Chip as he leaves Jim's house. Chip was dragged by the greasers with their car. Back at Jim's house, the local police chief, Pappas, suspects Jim of being involved in the incident and was invited to go to the police station. Meanwhile, Chip was dragged by the greasers until they stopped at the bridge. They realized he wasn't scared, so they showed how ruthless they were. They cut Chip apart and hurl his pieces off a bridge. The next day in school, Jim heard something in the washroom and went in to check. There, he saw the greaser with North, and Lawson said, "Now we can finish unfinished business, Jimmy." On the 27th anniversary of Wayne's death, they challenged Jim to a fight and tried to scare him about his son. Jim became very angry and pushed Lawson into a locker, saying, "Leave my family out of this." Later, while Jim's son Scott was walking back home, he was chased by the greasers in their car. Scott ran as fast as he could and tried to hide under a car, but the greasers were able to flip the car. The boy screamed for help, and fortunately, he was able to escape unharmed. When Jim was about to go inside his van, he saw a patrol car and remembers Officer Nell in a flashback, a former police officer. When he is located, he tells Jim that he was wounded during a robbery, was clinically dead for more than 3 minutes, and that during that time, Wayne's ghost appeared to him in the mid-realm, which is the space between this world and the hereafter. Wayne is trapped there, and according to Neil, spirits can occasionally return when things are uneasy. Then Jim tells Neil that the greasers all claim to have transferred in from Milford, but he can't discover any evidence of a Milford high school. Neil responds, "It's because it is not a school." Jim went to check Milford Cemetery, and there he saw Lawson, North, and Vincent's graves. He noticed Mueller's grave is not there, but Jim remembers that Mueller got out of the car and ran away. The greasers appeared suddenly and informed Jim that Mueller would be necessary to bring everything together. However, when Jim finds Mueller, he panics and flees, believing he is seeking retribution. Later, the greasers attack Jim's family at their residence, but Jim manages to repel them and leads his family to a church for protection from the demonic group. It is later revealed that Jim took the greasers' car keys as a child led to their murderous actions. Jim realizes that he must confront his past and stop running away from it. When Jim goes back to his abandoned childhood home, he discovers the old car keys he stole the night his brother was killed. Mueller joins him and expresses regret for Wayne's passing while offering to assist. Mueller is taken along in the greasers' subsequent attack, which reunites their gang. Lawson, Vincent, and North came to Jim's childhood home, and Mueller finally saw his old friends again, but he was not happy to see them. They took Mueller with them and drove away at a high speed. The greasers enticed Jim's family out of the chapel and capture them in the meanwhile. When Jim goes to see Wayne's grave to ask for his assistance, the portal of the afterlife opens. Wayne appears, but something prevents him from re-entering the living world. The portal then closed. Jim goes back to the train tunnel where Wayne was killed. Jim was supposed to be slain alongside Wayne by the greasers, but Mueller changed sides and was killed by Lawson. For every life the greasers take, the dying Mueller reveals that another could come back. Mueller dies and Wayne is able to return after the entrance to the afterlife opens. They heard the sound of the steam train approaching. Jim showed the car key to Lawson and tossed it away from them. Jim removes his family from the gang's 1955 Chevrolet as Wayne diverts the attention of the group. Lawson says he'll come back, but Jim says there won't be another time. The group attempts to flee in their car, but as they do, it is struck by a ghost train that matches the one that killed them in 1963 and knocks them into hell. Wayne is not aware that 27 years had passed, and thought that Scott is his younger brother when he saw the baseball cap Scott is wearing. Jim explains that he has grown up and he named his son after their father. Wayne couldn't believe at first. Soon the portal opens and Wayne can move on to heaven and see his parents. He offers to have Jim come with him to the afterlife, but Jim refuses as his wife and son needs him. Jim promises that they will be together again someday. Before Wayne enters the portal, Jim said, "Wayne, you and me will always stick together." And Wayne returns to the afterlife. Jim passed on to his son the coins his brother gave to him when they were a child. At the end of the film, Jim's family heads home.